Huge,
My parents' name is immigrants and naturalized, so I'm not necessarily opposed.
Oh, wow. You're the child.
Correct, I'm showing that it was
But you don't accept that immigrants are American.
not at this moment.
Your parents are not American.
Not at this moment.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by not at this moment? Did they just kick you out of the house? Did you just argue with dad on your way down here? What do you mean, not at this moment?
Oh, your parents
They're
are American.
citizens. They became naturalized.
You just said you can't be citizens like you're naturalized.
No, I was born here, and I'm
They
the
go
first
for
to
it,
naturalization.
But your parents,
Against
are you,
naturalization.
are you against naturalization?
No, I never said I was against
You
naturalization.
did. You began. You're very everyone to say they can play it back on YouTube.
We all saw it. I didn't get one of those red flags at Wawa, but we saw it. This going bad for you. This has actually gone bad for everybody who's tried to argue with me or something. I wouldn't advise that.
Americans or immigrants? Are your parents Americans or immigrants?
No, my parents are United States citizens.
But they're immigrants.
No, they came here. However,
So they are immigrants. You said, I came here as an immigrant. I'm an
But
immigrant.
at this point, they
I don't know.
People aren't happy with the way this is going.
the United States economy was not at
She like, hell no. She don't even understand what immigrant means. While debating immigration, it's going to be a lot of these. I'm gonna have to order some new Races of the Week awards to send out today.
The reason the economy do bad is that Donald Trump's tariff policy. Nothing to do with migrants. In fact, the congressional.
businesses.
I'm an immigrant. I started a business. In
No,
fact,
I understand.
immigrants are immigrants. I didn't take any loans from this state. I didn't take any
I'm not
loans.
saying you did, but
If I'm
I'm saying
saying
that speaking, they're giving billions of
So
dollars.
if you do statistics, right, immigrants are more likely to pay in taxes than
Yeah.
take out in benefits.
And I'm-
They're more likely to add to innovation and jobs and wages. This is what the statistics show. The Congressional Budget Office. Let me just finish my point and let me come back in. The Congressional Budget Office, which is bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats both use it. They have said the immigration surge that you mentioned will lead to an extra $9 trillion of GDP over the next 10 years. That amounts to $65,000 per American household. That's $65,000 for each and every one of you holding up a red flag.
Yeah, I understand.
Pause, you've been voted out by the majority, please return to your seat.
She also got voted out of her household. So make sure she leaves at night because she liable to sleep in.
So he can call it whatever he wants, because that's free.
He's threatened for prison for reporting.
Yeah.
He wants to bring set reporters for prison for reporting. He threatened someone with prison. Right? That is against the First Amendment.
Okay. How is that against the?
You don't need sending reporters to prison for reporting illegal. He wanted to. He said, I would like them to. So people stopped him, the other people stopped the
Okay.
Constitution.
So
He also said if you turn up.
he can want to do,
Yes.
that doesn't mean he will.
Okay.
And I think he's
But I've
very,
already given examples that he did do. So I think, okay.
yeah, okay, so he's looking at practicing out in local office. And they are allowed to practice, just like, and like the Guardian.
But she thinks it illegal media organization. He calls the media the enemies of the people.
You call them factions.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the president is, I'm not the president, I say the executive power to crack down on the media.
It only applies to citizens, not the
And it was
president.
like that. Like Donald Trump runs it powerful than anyone. Yeah. And he doesn't just say stuff. I'm just saying, yet he does stuff. Yet he does crack down, for example, Fifth Amendment.
Yeah.
Due process. Yeah. Judge did what he said. He was violated due process.
Yeah,
He was a long time.
people kind of forget that Clinton, the 1996 Immigration Reform Act,
Yeah.
where you can get limited due process when you have expedited.
American citizens?
Okay, this one also was a hot mess, but I do really appreciate where Mehdi Hassan checked her because that is something that I see all of the time with this false equivalency. First of all, he can think whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants. Okay, certainly you would have let whatever go that you objected to that Biden or Obama or Kamala Harris thought or said. Certainly they could say and think outlandish things and it's perfectly fine because they can think and say whatever they want. I'm sure a lot of, and if I go back and look all last year, the attacks on Kamala Harris, who's never anything that she said or thought. It was all based on her actions. But also this idea that people that actually have the ability to affect the lives of people that they show bias towards is somehow the same as any of those same people without said power having feelings about them. Wild. That is the kind of false First Amendment equivalency we see all the time to excuse racist policy. Oh, well, you know, he happens to run, I don't know, pick one, the State Department, or he happens to run immigration. So what? He said that about brown people. He has freedom of speech. And that's where we're at in 2025. That is exactly where we're at. You know what, Jubilee? The best argument in your defense might not be that that you have sunk to a level. It might just be you have exposed our level. Maybe that's. I'm gonna take back with you on it, but I'm just giving you that one. That's the best argument you got right now. This looking ugly. Man, you got people over here that don't even have no point. They just want to get mad and yell at immigrants. Maybe that's the question. Did you go where the whole thing was tomorrow? Yes. No matter how you order McDelivery, right now be $5 off the entire order of $20 or more. Enjoy favorites like a Big Mac, Dr. Pepper, and fries. Price and participation in great companies to find them off minimum purchases, food snacks, service fees, and other prices behind their websites. You think the Republicans exploited the victim of somebody raised all the way up? That's what I said. That's what you believe. It's completely different. That's what I believe. Do you believe that wages? I'm just wondering how you do it. You believe that the 1% will raise wages in the federal way? We would still do it. They would be forced to. We can increase labor's relationship to capital. Okay, you give labor more bargaining power because you're touching labor. It's where you're wrong. I'm telling you, you're ignoring the fact that when immigrants come into an area, they spend money. They create jobs. No matter what they spend. That's a good thing. Also, you don't have U.S. state foreign aid. So this is the point. They create jobs. I'm getting to this country. So glad I love myself about me being friends. But listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from West Virginia. I don't even. I should get the hell out. Yeah, why? I want you here. Woo! He better than me. He better than me. He lucky there's no loose chairs around the Ain't no way. Hey, did they have to sign a waiver before he did? Did he have to sign something? That, ooh, and by the way, the most accurate thing that he has said is because I don't want you. That is really that is the only factual thing that has come out of this man's mouth. And again, because we come back to this place all the time. Dress up their racism, put a nice little, put some lipstick on it, give their racism some pumps, and curl the racism tail a little bit on that pig. He just left it all like, there it is. You trying to dress it up. It's all gone. It's all gone. Yeah, why? Why? Because you come here and say all this bullshit about how Americans are lazy. You push your left and all things. Why you say that? Yes, so they can do jobs that we don't want to do. When did I say? So guys watching YouTube, rewind to the timeline and said, immigrants we don't want to. What say? Okay, so why do we have to bring? Why do we have to bring in immigrants to the country? Why do we have to go there? United States continue. United States continue. You're going to have to go rogue when he said about the American citizen. He said that to an American citizen. Apparently, not all American citizens are worthy of protection. Not like these business owners that choose to hire said immigrants so that they could save money on payroll. I didn't understand. I didn't realize till I saw the bro with the backwards mesh trucker hat that the immigrants had held the billionaires hostage and forced them to employ them at the expense of American workers. Imagine crashing out to this degree to defend people that won't hire you and are actively working for the destruction of your class. Nasty work. Not nastier work than that backwards mesh trucker hat in 2025. I tell you,
I realize that we are aware that we are grateful. They are very far right. They say they're very far left. So, on the spectrum, the fight. The interviews from Jubilee are terrifying. If you get a chance to see it, Jubilee, and they are going back and forth. But it just really, the interesting thing about it, the majority of those people are young people. And I had mentioned in a live that when I had done some time, I was really surprised to see 19, 20-year-old white men who were using the term colored in 2023, 2024, 2025. And I was really kind of a little surprised by that. But the more I dig into and the more I understand about why so many white men, especially young white men and young black men, that we know what it looks like when the vote. It's interesting about how they feel so strongly about being racist and like fascist and like being very proud that they are those things and like do not care, have no hesitation, they're very protective. The crazy thing about feeling that way about people who look differently than you is when it comes down to it, a lot of this is going to be the billionaires and everybody else. Unless you are a billionaire, you belong to that. But eventually, you don't need somebody who looks like me. You don't need my help. To have put yourself in a situation where you just all over the internet, like, I'm a fascist, I'll be that. What? What do you mean? So it's just really untoward, very disturbing. You can look it up if you just really want your day to be eye-opened. But this is the world in which we live. And I wish I could say it was just those 20 young people in the room, but the reality is, it's so many more. And we found out a lot of them are in people's families. It's an emotional connection. There's an emotional reason why these folks feel this way. They feel like that their feelings are hurt, that they haven't got certain privileges and certain things in life, even though they have been highly privileged all of their lives. But the fact that you point that out because they have feelings is what, like, not logic, it's feelings. It's people, I feel like you're attacking me. That is the thing that is destroying people's feelings, which are not based on that. Scary.
amen to that. That was sensationally said. And if there was actually one tagline that can go along with this entire episode of Jubilee, it would be feelings, not facts.
No, I say he was friends. He was friends. Did you ever seen the videos? They danced together, party together. Yes, he's not supportive. Actually, Trump gave a speech about 20 years ago when he said, Epstein's a great guy, he loves young women a lot, but very young, nuts, does drink, big, blah, blah. So yeah, I think he's pro criminals. I think he's some pro safe. Do you have any friends who are criminals? Not that I know of. Certainly not offenders. No, do you? Okay, so we're both in agreement again. Why do you have to know Trump? One of your friends. You know what I do? Yes. Yeah, but I wouldn't say, but I wouldn't go on TV and I would say, oh, look, Mr. Khan was friends with this guy 10 years ago. Therefore, what if Mr. Trump said, I wish them well in the trial? Would you ever go? You wish them well. You wish them well. Yeah. I mean, I would wish them well. But Donald Trump did. That's a gotcha. It's a pretty big gotcha. You wish them well. Okay. What about the president? What about the president? He'll talk to his saying, what's his policy? Yeah. So when he left office in 2020, he left behind the highest murder rate for over 100 years. He left behind. Yes. He goes back there. No, it's a fact. From the CDC. So then you come back there. You're sliding. I'm lying. Yeah, but Grace said Donald Trump's not possible. It's murder. Well, that's murder rate and Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not yes, the state of the law. So that's like saying, no, I'll say nothing is for stop no crime. Let me finish the sentence. When Donald Trump left office in 2020, in 2019, 2020, the CDC, the FBI, Pew Research, the 30% increase in the murder rate in 2019 and 2020, the single biggest jump in the murder rate since 19.
Yes, that's right, because I have a very vivid memory of Donald Trump absolving Joe Biden for the horrific crime that he was imagining was happening during his administration because it was at the state level. Yes, I do. Not only did he defy what you're arguing right now, he imagined crime so that he could lay it at Joe Biden's feet. And this is what you're arguing now.
Donald Trump was pro-crime and pro-criminal.
I would just like to ask, what makes someone pro-crime versus anti-crime?
I think when you're solving criminals out of prison, criminals, Donald Trump pardoned almost 1,600 people who were involved in January the 6th. I think 600 of them being charged with assaulting a police officer or obstructing a police officer. 170 have pled guilty to assaulting a police officer. 70 have pled guilty to assault with a deadly weapon. J.D. Vance said, we're not going to pardon violent criminals January 6th. Donald Trump pardoned all of them. Are you okay with that?
I would say January 6th is a very special case. I would say it's almost like flashpoint in history. I would just phrase the question this way. Right now in the LA protests, if they were to, just for example, if they were to rush the Capitol of LA, I mean, they have to move over all the homeless people living in pencils. But if they were being just sitting in the Capitol and they were protesting peacefully, let's say police officers were rushing them in, they were letting them in, saying, hey, you guys can go in. Like we had made testing them sick.
What about the violent ones?
Okay, violent ones like
David Dempsey, a judge, a Reagan-appointed judge, sentenced to 20 years in prison. He stomped on police officers' hands. The judge said his conduct was exceptionally egregious. He attacked police officers with flagpoles and pepper spray. Donald Trump pardoned him. But the man named Daniel Rodriguez got 12 years in prison for taking a stun gun and tasing a police officer in the neck and giving him a heart attack. But the judge said he was a one-man army of hate. Donald Trump pardoned him. Does that not make Trump pro-criminal?
Now, when it comes to facts and law, Mehdi Hasan was spitting a lot of it. But this one happens to be my favorite.
I'll tell you this, right? This might sound bad. And I didn't people can't be anyway, so let me say something like that. Nobody can. If you have a high school immigration citizenship test for everyone, I think the immigrant kids are going to outperform the white kids. It's not for the white kids, and people here will be really upset.
I don't know if he was more mad at what Mehdi Hasan said or that the guy agreed with him. It's possible. I'll be honest. I have known some substitute teachers that I went to school with, and I know just how that is. So I can't defend that. That is, we gonna train immigrants, but
I don't know if that's good.
certainly can't defend our education system. I won't do that.
You and your own person are a complete perfect example of why immigration is negative and why we shouldn't allow people who are
Why? But it was us. People in your Discord server. Hate to break it to you, you see this, but I would not include you in my us, if that makes sense. Mehdi is the only person in this video who didn't seem completely insane to me. I think he's great. I'm glad he's here. I want more Mehdi Hasan and less of whatever you are.
And then that ain't the truth. And that pretty much underscored a lot of people's opposition to this particular video. Not just what was being said, but the fact that it was being platformed at all.
Claim number one, who believes the Rabbit series is the worst thing on the internet by a long shot?
Surrounded is a very popular show where one prominent person sits in the center of a circle of people who disagree with him, and then they have a series of debates about claims of the person who sits in the debate. The prominent person is usually Jeffrey Ross, this guy is Benny Hassan, over MSNBC host and current editor today. And to show you how the debate went, let's take a look at her profile picture which she took from the debate. Not great. You see, Jubilee isn't a debate. The gladiators who fought against lions weren't getting pet care by either. It is blood and spectacle for the sake of blood and spectacle. And since Jubilee is only ever interested in the entertainment part of this and not the edifying aspect of proper debate, they have to keep raising the stakes each time they do one of these shows. The current show that dropped today was advertised to us and to Mehdi Hassan as Mehdi Hassan versus 20 far-right conservatives. But when they say 20 far-right conservatives, what they actually mean is start at a map of America and keep going right until you hit Germany in 1942. So, hey, what did I say? I think you said it in commercials. Yeah, even Benny was surprised. He said in a tweet,
It's good, right?
so people were far beyond what he expected them to be. Bully is turning the debate about important issues into a blood sport, taking the profits and running it. This is bad for each and every one of us. We should all stop watching. I'm not going to, but we should all stop watching.
As a journalist living in the U.S., watching the last TV debate was very concerning. I do not know why they're still given a stake. There is no coexistence with fascists. When they say, well, agree to disagree, no. We should not be giving these people a stake. There's one guy that even outright said that he is a fascist and then started laughing, and so did many others. And people think, oh, well, you know, you just got to let them talk. No, I do not think that these debates I think that these debates even lead to pushing the alt-right pipeline even further. Because what good do they do? Tell me. I cannot see the good in it. And I was also taught about the Holocaust my entire life, in general about authoritarianism, and also how to see the signs and be about the signs. Agree to disagree. In what world are we living?
So I have to watch the Mehdi Hassan Jubilee thing, and I'm not going to continue right. But you don't make me mad about that. In addition to these young people bragging about hating democracy, being bigots, so on and so forth, like Mehdi Hassan is like an actual journalist who has books, he has a TV show, he studies politics. Those kids are just college kids who think they deserve to be there. They're not equal. Mehdi Hassan has real credentials. He should be speaking about political matters. And then you have this group of kids who their only qualification is being white in America. And like that's the thing about white people, tricks white people and thinking that they're white, they aren't qualified for this, which is not the case. You have to have their abilities. These kids clearly have no ability. It's not one thing about. This is why we can't be doing this. We cannot give these people things. Because when we do, we just normalize their pushing the other side. So the more you don't allow people to come in and say these crazy kind of things, the more I accept those things like reasonable ways to work. Bigotry is not a reasonable thing. Like platforming bigotry is not a good thing for me. It's trying to go against. No more than things. Don't make me think that people in this situation. We're fighting against democracy, we're fighting against equality of people. Don't, because you're obviously not really.
That right there, we know, based on everything we've seen, is a widely held belief. And we can go on with it. He called himself a fascist and people applaud it. Yeah, like what debate are we having? What are we talking about? Pro-fascism versus anti-fascism? What's going on? Why is even a conversation? A discussion. Why is even being a platform? I said it once and I'll say it again. When Jubilee, there were reports of Jubilee trying to take platforms to debate. There is no two sides.
What's the name?
There are no discussions need to be had about eugenics. You did some wrong stuff in the conversation, and there are certain things that are incorrect.
full stop in the conversation. There are no two sides to fascism. So what are we debating? What is the conversation? But see, this reveals so much about how history has repeated itself. This reveals so much about how people really think and build coalitions and advocate on behalf of fascism.
Yeah.
It's as ridiculous as having to debate whether or not people deserve having to debate whether or not slavery is bad. Having to debate whether or not the Holocaust happened and the Holocaust was bad. Having to debate these things is ridiculous because we know the answer. There is no there is no discussion. But yet you have this platform that reaches out to millions of people where they're able to get in there and debate. These are not ideas that need to be practical. They're ideas and rhetoric and pernicious intentions that need to be debated.
You know what I'm talking about.
How people think
This is
how we see the real time. Living age showing us exactly what people think in real time. How many people are practically people? Millions of people that think so great. And are given the space to do so. A safe space.
That's the thing. Like all of
A safe space for racism. A safe space for
safe space to be like racist, safe space to see what they want to say. Like, bro, it's crazy. Freedom of speech don't mean freedom of hate speech. And that's what niggas gotta understand. It was freedom of speech, but it wasn't freedom of hate
So
speech.
this
It was freedom to like protest.
That is the final word that we will get. Shout out to Davey and Mateo for that. But for the rest of y'all won't get these out. I had a special order of case just for everybody involved in the Jubilee production. Except for me.
Still big C.
Yeah, even the cameraman. Anyone who made it black. Y'all all get it. There was no excuse for that. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It makes me a little surprised to some of you, but I don't always record these videos, clean from beginning to end.
Thank you guys. Big CT. Oh my.
They ain't to see it. More than that.
Oh, shit.
Well, I thought that might be content that some of you guys might be interested in. So members,
Videos
videos that might hit the timeline soon. I also want to send a shout out to everybody that's reached out to me at admin@reachborders.com. I very much appreciate all your comments.
Trying to do everything else.
And I try and respond to
Trying to do everything else.
but there was one in particular from Holly who said, "Hi, Reese. I know you use Patreon for other reasons. I don't need that from you. I watch you on
YouTube, what's your cash at?"
Oh, shit. We live? They think we gave us no until it's not me.
17th, 18th year. 39, 20th year, what's happening right here. The focus of 40% of the players that are going to tell you that it's just like, there's no stop.
That document said same thing. Oh.
You get mad, you keep
I truly appreciate somebody who's saying it like that.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you something for the sacrifice. Grew up in the 90s, worked in the chart, Mark Jackson was there, created this basketball culture, Jordan shoes, fixed.
Just bring the whole thing, the big thing.
Yeah, it's stick to the conversation.
Yeah.
LeBron's probably going to do it the second.
Baby, I ain't on the chair though. I'm stuck on the chair. The big bag.
He showed up. That's what I appreciated about and that I overlooked or underestimated when it comes to it. Enthusiasm and love for the game, guys. And it's that simple. It's not more, nothing more than that. I know LeBron and Bryant so much built on time, but the foundation is that. Everything he does is the foundation from this very song. That's what I can appreciate. Because it's literally that simple for a lot of people that's coming in for a long time. I was watching it. Random and you know when I watch him, like, I just go deep for like at least a day or two of like, oh, sorry, that I didn't make all that. I go a deep dive of like my years. I think Vinny played over 20-something years.
Well, that's crazy.
Like, he did. But he had an Achilles heel. I think he played over 20 years. Man, he played a long. Vinny, right? He played a long time. Yeah. And it's like a lot of other quarterbacks and football players who played 16, 17, 18 years. And it's just like, you truly don't, you don't get it until you get like 15, 16 years in the league, how hard it is to wake up every day, knowing what you know, and still come to work and still have the measure of people who are just experiencing this for the first time and don't know as much as you know. And you still get up and want to work as hard as you can, be the best teammate and work. That's greatness to me.
And every day, I could be LeBron James. Every day, whoever you run into, whatever fans do, it's the greatest day of their life. You're going to show up. Grew up in an era where your voice was asked to be spoken and you showed up and you spoke.
Rolled up.
You made consistent purpose. You went through shit. And to do it for that long, I think it's been more mind-blowing for me this year than ever before.
And it goes back to that goal. Right?
Like,
How many people can relate to LeBron James or I'll just sit and have a conversation about what people do on a daily basis. Who can have those conversations? But truly know what he's going through as LeBron James. How many people?
so, I'm good. One hand.
But who else?
All right, let me give you some others.
Yo, 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 yo.
Niggas still out the trade. Oh, you like niggas out the trade. Hey, what I'm talking about, like,
I got the mic. Hold on.
no.
Yo, yo, yo. Oh.
Play for a long time.
Yes, it is.
Don't forget, it's also
That's the turn mic.
Oh.
My high end turn mic.
every NBA decade is special. But the 1990s, might be the most iconic of all time. During the 90s, we witnessed the greatest scoring run ever, the greatest rebounding reign ever, and the continued excellence of the all-time assist leader. We saw the best team ever. We saw records that would likely never be broken, as well as notable changes and the continued globalization of the NBA as it became the most popular basketball league on the planet. Legendary feuds, iconic game winners, tattoos, dyed hair, and cornrows were all part of the decade that produced some of the greatest moments in NBA history. This is the full recap of the 90s, from the 1990 season until 1999. The 1989 NBA season featured 25 franchises. The 90s started with 27, as the Minnesota Timberwolves and Orlando Magic joined the league. But one of the biggest changes came from the coaching side, as the Chicago Bulls hired an unproven coach who looked like a hippie and used sage during practices, but would end up retiring with 5 rings and changes. NBC and TNT became new broadcasters. Unsullied by sponsorship since 1989. The 1989-90 season was historical due to the first influx of international players. Lonnie Divac, Drazen Petrovic, However, the first pick of the 89
Okay.
But it wasn't all.
You're not coming.
Sean,
Talk to him.
Glenn Rice, and Tim Hardaway also got drafted. And yet, the biggest addition to any team was the one of David Robinson, who was the first overall pick in 1987. Decided to stay in the
You the only one that really got we love
this
it.
year enrolled in the lineup. The Spurs improved by
Yeah,
35 games, which was the biggest turnaround in NBA history at the time. Robinson became just the second newcomer who won Rookie of the Year unanimously. Jordan led the league in scoring for the fourth consecutive season, but in one of the closest MVP battles ever, where four different players had a realistic chance to win, MJ finished third in MVP voting behind Charles Barkley and Magic Johnson, who won his third
Shout
MVP.
out with Cass.
Dennis Rodman won his first Defensive Player of the Year, even though he averaged less than one steal and block per game, while the team somehow finished second, despite averaging 2.1 steals and a league-leading 4.6 rejections. Olajuwon also notched a quadruple-double during the season, becoming only the third player in NBA history to do so. In the All-Star game, East dominated the West, but Magic took home the MVP. And it was only the third time in history a player on a losing team won the All-Star MVP. In the dunk contest, Dominique Wilkins defeated Kenny Smith, whose knees weren't as crooked yet, to win his second slam dunk title. In the playoffs, despite having the MVP as the coach of the year, the Lakers struggled in their first year without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and got defeated by the Suns in the second round. However, it was the Portland Trailblazers who won the West, behind a great backcourt duo of Terry Porter and Clyde Drexler. In the East, Michael Jordan got his second conference finals, but for the third year in a row, he got punched, kicked, and grabbed by the Pistons and their Jordan rules. MJ still pushed the Pistons to Game 7, where he would score 31 points with 8 rebounds and 9 assists. But the rest of the Bulls starters shot an abysmal 23% from the floor, scoring just 43 points. The Pistons blew them out to advance to their third consecutive NBA Finals. In the championship round, it was very
Relax.
close, as 4 games were decided
It's okay.
by less than a 6-point margin of victory. But the Pistons proved their championship pedigree winning 5 games, with Isaiah Thomas as the Finals MVP. Isaiah played the best series of his life, scoring 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, shooting 54% from the field and an unbelievable 69% from three. Drazen Petrovic, who was by far the best player in Europe and one of the 10 best shooters in basketball history, played garbage time minutes. It shows how much the NBA teams didn't trust the Euros back then. And when the 1990-91 NBA season rolled around, it came with a lot of changes. 8 teams changed their coaches, most notably the LA Lakers, whose Pat Riley resigned as the head coach after 9 years and 4 championships.
Pat Riley, of his own doing, resigned and spoke to the Lakers. He knew it early in February he was going to do it. After the season, he made an agreement with Jerry Buss. Not
great.
to close the play group and selected.
The Orlando Magic didn't change their coach, but they changed conferences. And after they had more travel miles than any other team, they unsurprisingly returned to the East after 1 year. There were also some rule changes. The NBA instituted the Trent Tucker rule, named after Trent Tucker, who did a walk-off 3-point field goal at the buzzer in the previous season, with 0.1 seconds left on the clock. The new rule prevented any shot from being taken with up to 0.2 seconds left in the period, except for tip-ins. And after years of hacking, namely by the rough bad boy Pistons, the NBA introduced the flagrant foul. In the otherwise weak draft class, Hall of Famers Gary Payton and Tony Kukoc were drafted, even though the Croatian forward would stay in Europe for the next 3 seasons. The season started in Tokyo, at least for the Suns and Jazz, who played their first game of the season in Japan. The NBA became the first major professional sports league to play outside North America. On December 30th, 1990, Scott Skiles handed out 30 assists in the game against the Nuggets, which set an NBA record that still stands today. Rodman repeated as the defensive player of the year. Hakeem changed his name. Barkley spat on a little girl sitting courtside, while Jordan won another scoring title and his second MVP award. This was also the first season since 1981 that the Lakers didn't have the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, which is insane and tells you how great of a player Magic Johnson was. The Lakers would defeat Hakeem's Rockets and the Run TMC Warriors in the first 2 playoff rounds. In the conference finals, everyone expected the number 1 seed Lakers to advance to the finals again. However, Magic shows that he still owned the West, making his 9th trip to the finals in 12 years. Another crazy feat.
The stage is set for the Air Magic Show in the NBA Finals, starting Sunday. You'll see Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls against Magic Johnson and the LA Lakers. But the biggest story happened in the East. After years of bullying, Michael Jordan and his Bulls finally shook off the Detroit Pistons in a clean series sweep. And before the final buzzer sounded in Game 4, Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons walked off the court, passing by the Bulls bench with their heads down, refusing to congratulate the winners. MJ took this personally. 1 month later, he had his revenge on Isaiah. But more on that later. In the finals, things didn't start so well for the Bulls. The Lakers won Game 1 in Chicago. But then Scottie Pippen started guarding Magic, which changed everything and turned the series around. Jordan was absolutely spectacular, with 31 points and 11 assists, and nearly 3 steals on average, while shooting 55% from the field.
They put a longer window on this nigga and it changed everything.
One of the most
It goes to show you, you playing against somebody that's your length, your height, that should be hard.
Bulls
It's
won the series in 5 games, and of course, Jordan was the Finals MVP. But now, let's talk about Michael's revenge on Isaiah Thomas. 1 month after the season, around the time when Terminator 2 ruled the box office, the NBA League, Commissioner Stern, and the U.S. Olympic Program agreed to send NBA players to the Olympics. After the collegiate athletes only won bronze in 1988, the first call was for Michael, who famously accepted the play, but only if Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the team. And on September 21st, 1991, it was officially announced that NBA stars would participate in the Olympics. The 10 players chosen were Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, Patrick Ewing, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, Chris Mullin, Scottie Pippen, David Robinson, and John Stockton. When the public saw Isaiah off the list, the Olympic Committee received a lot of backlash because Thomas was widely considered the second best point guard ever behind Magic. And speaking of Magic, he would soon become the biggest story in all of sports. After a physical examination before the start of the 1992 season, Johnson discovered that he had tested positive for HIV. And on November 7, 1991, Johnson organized arguably the saddest and the most memorable press conference in NBA history.
Because of the HIV virus that I have obtained, I will have to retire from the Lakers today.
In Magic's honor, Charles Barkley switched his number from 34 to 32, which he wore for the entire season. Dikembe Mutombo, Steve Smith, Larry Johnson, and Kenny Anderson got drafted, with Larry Johnson winning Rookie of the Year in another relatively weak draft class. Pat Riley, after a year of commentating, returned to the NBA.
Pat Riley won 4 NBA titles in 9 seasons with the Lakers. He left LA 3 years ago, worked there at NBC for a year, and then joined the Knicks in the 91-92 season.
Who would become a defensive force and a perennial contender in the East. But as the Knicks grew stronger, 2 other East powerhouses were at the end of their glory days and would soon fall into obscurity. Larry Bird played his last season with the Boston Celtics, and despite having to stretch for 2 hours before the game because of his bad back, he still averaged 20, 10, and 7, and shot over 40% for 3. The Celtics won 51 games, which would be their last 50-win season in 16 years.
So today I'm retiring, and I'm still going to be around, but not in the capacity I once was.
The Bad Boy Pistons were also falling apart, as Chuck Daly resigned by the end of 1992 to coach the Dream Team. On the brighter side, 1992 marked the start of the rebounding reign of Dennis Rodman. The Worm averaged an unreal 18.7 rebounds per game, which was the highest average since Wilt Chamberlain in 1972. It is the first of an NBA record of 7 consecutive rebounding titles for Rodman. And during this span, Dennis averaged 16.7 boards per game, which is insane for a 6'7" forward. The Run TNC Warriors era also came to an end after Mitch Richmond got traded to the Kings. Luke Longley became the first Australian player to join the NBA, while Larry Brown became the first head coach to coach 2 different NBA teams in a single season, after resigning from the San Antonio Spurs to join the Clippers. Brown led the Clippers to the team's first winning season since their relocation to Los Angeles, ending their 15-year playoff drought. Another NBA record worth mentioning was the Cavaliers' beatdown of the Miami Heat. On December 17, 1991, the Cavs crushed the Heat by a score of 148-80. This 68-point win stood as a record for nearly 3 decades until the Grizzlies defeated the Thunder by 70 back in 2021. But the biggest story of the regular season wasn't any record, nor Jordan winning another MVP, or John Stockton leading the league in assists for the 5th consecutive season. The biggest story was again Magic Johnson. 3 months ago, he announced his retirement from the NBA after testing positive for the HIV virus. But he was voted by the fans as one of the starting guards for the Western Conference Stars. Even though some people had reservations about Johnson playing with HIV, as Charles Barkley eloquently said it, the players weren't going to have unprotected sex with Magic. At Burger King, you will defend you. Try the barbecue brisket Whopper today.
This is Buick. Buick, exceptional by design. Get 0.9% APR on these 2025 months. Plus, first eligible Maggi hours, you have 3,000 miles of Volvo deals. Having to take care of them, it'll help fill those holes in their business that they have.
Take care of it. It gives you 7 key immune supporting nutrients, including vitamin C, D, and zinc. It's our most complete support yet. Before the game started, Isaiah Thomas hugged Magic and kissed him on the cheek, which calmed everybody and provided one of the most sincere moments of camaraderie in sports history, including the final shot of the game, the three-pointer with 14 seconds to go, which ended the game prematurely. As all players ran onto the court to congratulate Johnson and exchange high fives. Magic was the MVP with 25 points and 9 assists. In the three-point shooting contest, the best shooter of all time was sitting in his father's lap, watching Del Curry lose the competition to Craig Hodges. After the All-Star break, the Lakers struggled without Magic, failing to win a playoff series for the first time in 11 years, losing 3-1 to the Blazers, who would go on to make the NBA Finals.
If I had been playing with them, we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in now. We're missing the emotion. I thought that's what I brought to the team, where emotionally every night we were up and ready, and right now we don't have that emotional either.
In the East, Riley's Knicks pushed Jordan to the limit, but Michael was too good for John Starks. The Bulls won the series in 7. Then, after the Bulls eliminated the Cavs in 6, it was time for a showdown between the 2 best shooting guards in the league, Michael Ayer and Clyde the Glide. Some analysts speculated that the advantage Drexler had over Jordan was his outside shooting, to which Michael responded with the best half of basketball in finals history. The first half of Game 1, Jordan scored 35 points, setting records for most points in the finals half and most three-pointers in it, with 6. After his 6th,
Jordan whole thing was what we all think. I'm a shit on that.
Marking his performance as the shrug game. And even though the Blazers,
My whole thing was, if I was with Jordan, if the Jordan fans was like, yo, bro,
MJ,
we've seen that before. I mean, we've seen that before. He said it himself. He mirrored his game, and he took somebody into the pieces and put into his game. Bro, ain't nothing wrong with being 1 from downtown. Ain't nothing wrong with being 2 B.
But MJ and Clyde would become teammates just several weeks later as they joined the rest of the Dream Team in Barcelona. The 1992 Olympic Dream Team became legendary for the amount of Hall of Famers that cruised to a gold medal, with the hype around a single basketball team that would likely never be repeated again. But before the Olympics even started, one guy that was supposed to be on the Dream Team just got drafted to the NBA.
The Orlando Magic selects Shaquille O'Neal from Louisiana State University.
Shaquille O'Neal was the #1 overall pick in the 92 draft, which also had other notable players like Alonzo Mourning, Latrell Sprewell, Robert Horry, and Christian Laettner, who famously got selected to the Dream Team instead of Shaq. But when the NBA season started, O'Neal quickly asserted his dominance, showed the Olympic Committee what made a mistake. Shaq's unique blend of power, size, and agility made him a nightmare for opposing defenders, as well as NBA rims. Shaq famously brought down the entire stanchion in Phoenix, resulting in the entire basket construction collapse. When he did it again in New Jersey, destroying the shot clock that landed on his head, the NBA realized that they needed to change something to withstand the Shaq attack. Starting from the 93-94 NBA season, the NBA had to Shaq-proof the rims.
switching to tempered shatter-resistant glass and stronger backboard braces. With 23 points, 14 rebounds, 3.5 blocks on average, Shaq convincingly won Rookie of the Year, 2 votes shy of winning the award unanimously. Shaq's dear friend, Charles Barkley, finally forced a trade out of Philadelphia before the start of the 1993 season, becoming a member of the Suns.
So he didn't know
Barkley
it.
was the best American player on the Dream Team, and he carried that home to the NBA, winning the MVP award with averages of 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. Jordan won his 7th consecutive scoring title, tying Will's record. And after 8 years of leading the NBA in combined blocks and steals, Hakeem Olajuwon finally won the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award, averaging 4.2 rejections and 1.8 steals per game. On the negative side of NBA history, the Dallas Mavericks had the 2nd worst season of all time.
Look at that.
Mavericks go the inbounds away. They're 4-6. Scoring again. It's a layup. Winning just 11 games with 71 losses. But when the playoffs started, there were no surprises, as 4 teams with the best record in the regular season
That means you can
the
set this
conference
shit up.
finals. In another classic matchup between the Bulls and the Knicks, New York won the first 2 games at home, and it seemed like Pat Riley, Pat Ewing, and John Starks finally had the goods to decode the trip. Michael had one of the worst series of his career, as the Knicks played the best defense he ever faced, apart from the Bad Boys. In 5 games of the series, NBA shot just 35% from the field. The Bulls' heads were kept above water because of Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and DJ Armstrong. However, Jordan couldn't be shut down forever. In Game 4, he shot 18 for 30 from the field, including 6 for 9 from 3, finishing with 54 points. At the time, it was the 8th highest scoring game in the playoffs. The Bulls tied the series, and then they won the next 2 games as well, advancing to their 3rd consecutive NBA Finals. In the West, Phoenix and Seattle kept exchanging leads, and the series would eventually be decided in Game 7. And after he closed out the previous series with a game winner against the Spurs, Charles Barkley dominated in the clutch again, finishing with 44 points and 24 rebounds, pushing the Suns to their first NBA Finals since 1986. So, I don't know if I go that far. But 2 days before the final started, a tragedy struck. While driving to the Eurobasket qualifying game in youth, the Volkswagen Golf crashed into a truck. Drazen Petrovic was sleeping on the passenger seat and wasn't buckled in, died in the crash. For Drazen Petrovic, the Red Star was killed on Monday evening in a car accident in Germany. Petrovic had just come off the best season of his
He was getting ready. I think it was going to kill Jordan.
per game. He got named to the All-NBA third team, becoming the first European player to make the All-NBA. At the time of his death, Petrovic was the all-time leader in
Just
three-point
all did
percentage,
like
and he's currently number 4
Close
on
that.
that list. The finals started with a minute of silence for Johnson. When the game started, the Suns were off and clearly afraid of the biggest stage, as the Bulls won Game 1 on the road. In Game 2, Barkley finished with 42 and 13, but it wasn't enough, as Jordan scored 42 of his own, along with 12 rebounds and 9 assists. Game 3 was a triple overtime game, where the Suns finally managed to win. But in Game 4, Jordan had the second best game scoring in the history of the NBA Finals, finishing with 55 points. The Suns managed to extend the series by winning Game 5 in Chicago, and in Game 6, thanks to the dagger 3 by John Paxson, the Bulls won the game and the championship. Michael Jordan scored 40 or more points in 4 consecutive games
was
of the
broke,
NBA
wow.
Finals and averaged an NBA Finals record of 41
But I
points
could
per
get a
game
ball.
per
He
season.
was wide open.
But before the next season even started, another tragedy, as the NBA family lost another great player. On July 27, 1993, Boston Celtics All-Star guard Reggie Lewis collapsed during practice and died of a heart condition later that day. And the Celtics honored him by retiring his number 35. A week later, on August 3rd, another tragedy struck the NBA, as the police had found a dead body in the swamps of South Carolina, and it was identified as the body of James Jordan, Michael's father.
What is still unclear and will be for some time is what effect this tragedy will have on Michael Jordan and his future with the Chicago Bulls.
Only a month later, on October 6th, Michael Jordan shocked the world when he announced his retirement from the NBA following that tragedy.
When I was sense of motivation and sense of improved something at basketball, but it's kind of working in basketball.
However, the rest of the league had to keep going, and there were some new notable additions. Chris Webber got drafted first overall by the Orlando Magic, who became the first team to earn the top overall pick in consecutive years in the lottery.
But because of Shaq's influence, who became good friends with Penny Hardaway during the filming of the movie Blue Chips, the Magic traded Leopard to Golden State for Hardaway, who was third overall. Jamal Mashburn, Allen Houston, Sam Cassell, and Nick Van Exel also got drafted in this class. Then, Magic Johnson returned to the NBA as the coach of the Lakers.
I do know that what it takes to win. And I do know what it takes to be a good basketball player. And that's how I work.
Joining the team for the last 16 games with a record of 5-11. The Lakers ultimately missed the playoffs for the first time since 1976, just like he did when he was the Lakers GM. Johnson quit the job. The Celtics also missed the playoffs. And this was the first time in history that neither historic franchise qualified for the postseason. The storied rivalry was reduced to a couple of votes barely over break-even. Magic's good friend Isaiah Thomas suffered a torn Achilles during the season, which forced his retirement from the NBA, just like Bill Laimbeer, who also decided to hang him up. On the other hand, another bad boy was thriving. Dennis Rodman, now playing for the Spurs, continued to dominate the class with 17 rebounds per game. On top of his on-court performance, Rodman fully embraced his inner bad boy and started to dye his hair almost every game. His front-court teammate, David Robinson, notched a quadruple-double, which was just the fourth and the last time it happened in an NBA game. And to win a scoring title over Shaq, Robinson went berserk in the final game of the regular season, scoring 71 points. Seventh highest scoring game ever at the time. Reggie Miller became just the third player in NBA history to shoot 50, 40, 90 for the season, joining Larry Bird and Mark Price. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf shot 95.6% from the free throw line, which was the second best mark in NBA history, behind Calvin Murphy's 95.8% from the 81 season. Abdul-Rauf hit 219 out of 229 free throws in 94. And if he had made just one more from the charity stripe, would have broken Murphy's record. But without Jordan in the league, Hakeem Olajuwon took the throne as the best player in the NBA. His Rockets started the season 15-0, which was the best start in NBA history. Hakeem became only the second player in history to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season, after MJ did it in 1988. This was the closest Defensive Player of the Year voting in history, as Hakeem won with 23 points out of 101, in front of David Robinson with 22, Dikembe Mutombo with 19, and Stephanie Pippen with 11. In the playoffs, Mutombo and his Nuggets became the first 8 seed to upset the number 1 seed, defeating the 63-win Supersonics 3-2 in the first round. Denver did a big favor to the Rockets, who didn't match up well with Seattle, and after a tough battle with Charles Barkley, the team and the Rockets made the NBA Finals. In the East, the Jordanless Bulls nearly defeated the Knicks in the second round. But New York eventually advanced after 7 tough games. In the conference finals, the Knicks were losing 3-2 to the Pacers. Game 5 will forever be remembered by Reggie Miller's choke towards Spike Lee. However, the Knicks had the last laugh, winning games 6 and 7 to advance to their first NBA Finals since 1973. The finals between the Knicks and the Rockets were one of the toughest physical and defensive-oriented finals in NBA history, as neither team scored more than 93 points in the series. After 6 games, the series was tied. But then, in Game 7, John Starks, who was the leading Knicks scorer coming into the game, had an absolute gun. Starks shot just 2 for 18 from the field, including 0 for 11 from 3. The Rockets won the game 90-84. Olajuwon won the Finals MVP with averages of 27, 9, and 4, with 4 blocks per game, limiting Ewing to just 36% shooting in the finals. And after such a low-scoring finals and overall decrease in offensive output compared to the 80s, the NBA wanted to increase scoring before the start of the 94-95 season. So they shortened the three-point arc to a uniform 22 feet around the basket, compared to the 23 feet 9 inches the month before. The league average from downtown was 33.3% in 1994, and with the shortened distance, it rose to 35.9%. And Steve Kerr led the league with 52.4% accuracy on three-pointers, which was the NBA record that stood until 2010, when Kyle Korver broke it with 53.5%. Also, starting from the 1995 season, players fouled while in the act of shooting a three-point attempt would get 3 free throws instead of 2. Jason Kidd, Grant Hill, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, and Glenn Robinson got drafted, with Kidd and Grant Hill winning the Co-Rookie of the Year award.
Grant Hill and Jason Kidd, the Co-Rookies of the Year in the NBA.
Hill also became the first rookie in professional sports to lead fan balloting for the NBA All-Star Game. Coach Lenny Wilkins passed Red Auerbach to become the NBA's all-time leader in wins, a record that stood for 15 years, until it was broken by Don Nelson.
Shaq won his first scoring title. Dikembe Mutombo won his first Defensive Player of the Year, while David Robinson won the MVP award. 1995 was also the last season for Moses Malone and the new Bull. However, the biggest story was Michael Jordan, who returned to the NBA after a 15-month absence playing baseball.
The economy has produced 6.1 million jobs since I became president. And Michael Jordan goes back to the Bulls at 86, but they did 100,001.
Jordan's announcement became legendary, as it consisted of just a two-word fax.
I'm back. That's all Jordan said on Saturday. That was really all Jordan needed to say as his 17-month retirement came to an end.
Since the Bulls had already retired his number 23, MJ started wearing number 45. And in just the 5th game since he returned, MJ scored 55 in Madison Square Garden in the famous double nickel game. But the number 45 wouldn't last long. After game 1 of the conference semifinals against Orlando, when Nick Anderson stole the ball from Michael in the final minute, which clinched the game for the Magic, Anderson boasted that 45 is not 23, alluding to the end of Michael's dominance in the NBA. So, for the next game, Jordan returned to the number 23, scoring 38 points in Game 2 and tying the series. However, due to the inferior front line, the Bulls couldn't battle Shaq and Horace Grant, and the Magic won the series in 6 games. The Indiana Pacers played another memorable series against the Knicks, highlighted by Reggie Miller's legendary 8 points in 9 seconds to steal Game 1 in New York. In the series where 4 games were decided on the final possession, the Pacers defeated the Knicks, winning 97-95 in 7.
That shit hit the inside of the ring pop right now.
These finals would also go to 7 games, with Orlando edging the Pacers to advance to their first NBA Finals, becoming the first of the 1980s expansion franchises to reach the championship round. In the West, the Rockets overcame a 2-1 deficit against the Jazz to win the series 3-2, but their championship dreams seemed to be over against the Suns, who had a 3-1 lead in the second round, with a double-digit advantage in Game 5. But Houston persevered and completely turned the game and the series around. In Game 7, the Rockets won 115-114 on a Mario Elie three-pointer, later dubbed as the Missing Tip. In the conference finals, Hakeem embarrassed David Robinson with this filthy move. Olajuwon was mad that Robinson won the MVP over him, and he completely outclassed his rival with 35 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks per game. Before the finals, Shaq was partying with teammate Dennis Scott for a week straight, but still, they were inches away from winning Game 1. Up by 3, the Magic's Nick Anderson had 2 free throws, but he missed both. However, Anderson grabbed his own rebound, and with 10 seconds to go, he got fouled. If he made only 1 free throw, Orlando would have won, but Anderson missed his 2 frees again. The Rockets had the final possession, and Kenny Smith tied the game with a 3-pointer, which was the 7th free he made that game, and that set an NBA record for most 3-pointers in a finals game, which wouldn't be broken until 2010. In overtime, the game was tied with 5 seconds to go. Olajuwon kicked in the middle of Drexler to win the game for the Rockets. Houston then won the next 3 games to repeat as NBA champions, and their 7 consecutive.
I thought that was CT.
Houston was the lowest seeded team ever to win the NBA Finals, winning at the 6th seed. The Rockets also became the first team to defeat 4 opponents who had 50 or more wins en route to a title. And one day after the finals concluded, the first ever NBA lockout ensued due to the labor dispute with the salary cap, free agency, rookie salary cap, and revenue share. But unlike some future lockouts, the new collective bargaining agreement was reached before the season started, and no games were lost. The NBA established its first Canadian teams since the 1946-47 Toronto Huskies, as the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies made their debuts as the NBA's 28th and 29th franchises. Pat Riley became the new head coach and team president for the Miami Heat, for which Miami paid a $1 million fine and first-round pick to New York, as they were found guilty of tampering with the former Knicks coach. In the offseason, Jordan was still in his base camp, training to get himself into the best shape of his career. And Garnett got drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves, becoming the first high school player to enter the NBA since Moses Malone in the late 70s. Rasheed Wallace, Michael Finley, Jerry Stackhouse, and David Stoudemire also got drafted in this class, with Stoudemire winning Rookie of the Year. Magic Johnson returned to the NBA after a 4-year absence, playing 32 games for the Lakers before finally retiring for good at the end of the season. But it was actually Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf who became the most talked about player in the NBA when he refused to stand for the American national anthem, stating that the flag was a symbol of oppression, of tyranny. On March 12, 1996, the NBA suspended Abdul-Rauf for his refusal to stand, costing him $31,707 per missed game. 2 days later, he worked out a compromise with the league, whereby he would stand during the playing of the national anthem, but could close his eyes and look down. John Stockton led the NBA in assists for the 9th consecutive year, and during the season, he became the all-time leader in assists and steals. Hakeem Olajuwon became the all-time leader in blocks, while Robert Parrish broke Kareem's record of most games played. And 4 years after the movie White Men Can't Jump came out, Brent Terry won the slam dunk contest as the first white player to do so, and the only one until Matt McClung won in 2023. Dennis Scott made the NBA record in three-pointers made in a season with 267, and it stood for 17 years until Steph Curry made 272 threes in 2013. Gary Payton became the first point guard ever to win Defensive Player of the Year, and Jordan won his 8th scoring title, which broke the NBA record MJ previously held with Wilt Chamberlain. Michael also won the MVP, as his Chicago Bulls won an NBA record 72 games, with the best net rating in NBA history, a record that still stands today.
This year's Chicago Bulls squad just may go down as the greatest team of all time.
The Bulls steamrolled through the playoffs, losing just one game on their way to the NBA Finals, where they met the Seattle Supersonics, led by Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. The Bulls won the first 3 games, but then the Sonics came alive with 2 wins of their own after Payton started guarding Jordan. However, in Game 6, the Bulls finished the job, winning their 4th title, with MJ becoming the first player ever to win 4 Finals MVP awards. But just 1 season after the first lockout, the NBA had another one. The lockout was imposed after the league and the players' union could not reach an agreement involving $50 million in profit sharing from television revenue. But after just a few hours of negotiations, the players' union and the league reached an agreement. In the 96-97 season, the NBA salary cap was roughly $24 million. Only 4 players in the league were making over $10 million per season, led by Horace Grant and his $14 million salary. But then there was also Michael Jordan, who earned $30 million that year, which was more than what 21 other franchises paid for their entire roster. This was possible because at the time, there was no maximum salary rule, and teams were allowed to go over the salary cap to re-sign their own free agents. So Jordan took advantage of that, signing a big 1-year contract. MJ's deal was trailblazing, and it led to other superstars soon demanding and getting more money.
Exactly.
The 1996 free agency was the first modern free agency, where a plethora of superstars started talking to the entire league in order to get the best offer. Before 1996, no NBA player had signed a $100 million contract. No player had made $20 million in one season. But then, a big splash, as the biggest fish in free agency changed oceans, deciding to move from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific.
If there is demand for a product, the price of the product goes up. If the bidding war ensues, the price of the product goes way, way up. And that brings us to Shaquille O'Neal.
On July 8, 1996, Shaquille O'Neal and the Los Angeles Lakers agreed to what was then the largest contract in the history of sports. The contract was worth $120 million over 7 years, while the Orlando Magic were left stranded for their indecisiveness to be signed. The Heat signed Mourning to a 7-year deal worth $112 million, but Riley wasn't done there, wanting to also sign Juwan Howard. It appeared that the Heat had Howard locked into a 7-year, $100 million deal, but the NBA voided the contract, citing the Heat for incentive bonuses for Tim Hardaway and P.J. Brown. Howard then signed a $105 million deal to stay with the Washington Bullets, while Charles Barkley got traded to the Rockets to join Olajuwon and Drexler. But before the season even started, a new crop of rookies joined the NBA, arguably the best draft class of the time.
The Philadelphia 76ers select Allen Iverson from Georgetown University.
Allen Iverson was the #1 overall pick. But there was also Kobe, who followed KG's path and came directly from high school. And Ray Allen, all future first ballot Hall of Famers. Other notable players include Jermaine O'Neal, Peja Stojakovic, Stephon Marbury, Marcus Camby, Antoine Walker, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Zadrunas Ilgauskas, and Derek Fisher. After a 3-15 start to the season, the Spurs GM Greg Popovich fired coach Bob Hill and started coaching the team himself. Starting his 28-year coaching tenure with San Antonio, the Utah Jazz broke the NBA record for the biggest comeback, winning a game against the Nuggets after trailing by 36 in the second quarter. Kevin Garnett became the youngest player selected for the All-Star game. It's the youngest man to make an All-Star game. Now, when they experience it in the next 3 hours, 20 seconds.
What makes me feel unstoppable? I don't like ceilings, I don't like walls.
Push that forward.
Lysol knows. Little hands. What best when their hands on? That's why this year we're donating more hands-on science kits. Their classes. Like doing nothing.
But
Chevy makes affordable vehicles that help you enjoy life. Enjoy the responsibilities and new Chevy. Chevrolet. Take that. And during the All-Star Weekend, the NBA celebrated its 50th anniversary by naming the 50 greatest players in history, where Wilt and Mike enjoyed some trash talking while Kobe won the slam dunk contest. Some of the most memorable regular season moments were when Dennis Rodman got suspended for 11 games for kicking a camera, and when Allen Iverson crossed over MJ. AI also became the first rookie to string 5 consecutive 40-point games. Iverson won Rookie of the Year, and Jordan won his 9th scoring title, all while Karl Malone won the MVP over MJ, even though the Bulls won 69 games, narrowly missing being the first team with consecutive 70-win seasons. For the first time in 10 years, John Stockton wasn't the league leader in assists, as Mark Jackson led the NBA with 11.4 dimes per game. In the playoffs, the most intense series was the second-round matchup between the Knicks and the Heat, which would start one of the most bitter rivalries of the entire decade. In Game 5, P.J. Brown flipped Charlie Ward on the hard.
Oh, shit.
As a result, Brown was handed a 2-game suspension, while Ward was suspended for Game 6. However, as a result of leaving the bench during the brawl, Patrick Ewing and Allen Houston were suspended for Game 6, while Larry Johnson and John Starks were suspended for Game 7. And even though the Knicks held a 3-1 series lead, with all the suspensions of their 4 best players, they couldn't battle the Heat, and Miami advanced after 7 games. But in the conference finals, Jordan and the Bulls made quick work of the Heat, limiting Miami to just 78 points on average, and beating them in 5 games to advance to another NBA Final. In the West, the Rockets defeated the Sonics in a close 7-game series to make the conference finals, while Utah defeated the Lakers in 5 games in a series that will mostly be remembered by Kobe's 4 airball misses. In Game 4 of that series, Malone hit all 18 of his free throw attempts, setting a playoff record for most attempts without a miss, since broken by Paul Pierce and Dirk Nowitzki. In the West, despite the Rockets' big 3, Utah was a better team, and they advanced after John Stockton hit a buzzer-beating 3 in Game 6. Game 1 of the finals was tied with 10 seconds to go. Karl Malone was at the free throw line, and Scottie Pippen told him the infamous line, "The mailman doesn't deliver on Sundays." The game was played on Sunday, and just like Pippen predicted, the mailman didn't deliver, missing both free throws. On the other end, Jordan dribbled the ball down the court and then made a 20-foot jumper at the buzzer to win Game 1. Malone had another poor performance in Game 2, which the Bulls won the lead. But in Game 3 in Utah, the mailman finally delivered, leading the Jazz to victory with 37-10. In Game 4, even though the Bulls had a 73-69 lead with a minute to go, with a series of misses and turnovers, the Jazz outscored the Bulls 12-2 in the clutch and tied the series. Game 5 was the most famous game of the series, and probably one of the most memorable games of Michael Jordan's career. Despite a heavy fever and a weakened body, Jordan came out of bed an hour and a half before the game started and suited up. However, it was clear that he wasn't up to par, as the Jazz generated a 16-point lead. But then, Jordan started hitting, and the Jazz lead was slowly starting to melt. In the last minute, with the game tied at 85,
Michael made a clutch three-pointer that would secure the victory for the Bulls. Jordan played 44 minutes, finishing the game with 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block, before collapsing into Scottie Pippen's arms. In Game 6, MJ was feeling much better, scoring 39 points. However, it was Steve Kerr who was the unexpected hero, hitting the game-winning shot. Scottie Pippen made a crucial steal at the end of the game to secure the 5th NBA title for the Bulls. And the 1997-98 season was the year of the coaches. First, an NBA legend returned to the court, but this time, Larry Bird was not playing, but coaching the Indiana Pacers, where he'd immediately win the Coach of the Year award. Secondly, Phil Jackson and the Bulls announced that the Zen Master would stop coaching Chicago at the end of the season, which created constant drama around the team and the season known as the Last Dance. Thirdly, the Warriors head coach PJ Carlesimo grabbed all the headlines when he appeared at a press conference with clear marks around his neck, which would later be discovered to be marks from Latrell Sprewell's hands. Spree threatened to kill him, and he nearly succeeded, for which he received a 68-game suspension, at the time the longest suspension in NBA history. And speaking of violence, the Washington Bullets didn't want to be associated with guns, so they renamed the team and became the Washington Wizards. Tim Duncan got drafted first overall by the Spurs, who won 36 games more than the previous season, which was the biggest turnaround in NBA history. Hall of Famers Tracy McGrady and Chauncey Billups also got drafted. The NBA reverted the three-point line back to 23 feet 9 inches at the top of the key, while the distance from the corners remained at 22 feet. The league average dropped from 36% accuracy and 6 made threes in 1997 to 34.5% and 4.4 made three-pointers in 1998. Now, for comparison, in the 2024 NBA season, teams averaged 12.8 makes from downtown with a 36.6% accuracy. Violet Palmer and Dee Kantner made history, becoming the first female officials in major American sports leagues. The Denver Nuggets made the history books as the 4th team ever to lose 70 games in a season, finishing with an 11-71 record. On February 27th, the Indiana Pacers defeated the Portland Trailblazers 124-59, marking the first time in NBA history that one team scored more than twice as many points as its opponent. AC Green joined the record, surpassing Randy Smith's record. Tim Duncan won Rookie of the Year. Timmy also made the first-team All-NBA, becoming the first player with this accomplishment since Larry Bird in 1980, and the last to do, as it hasn't happened since. In the playoffs, the Knicks and the Heat played each other again, and they didn't pull any punches. In another physical, emotional, and borderline dirty series, there was another brawl, this time between two guys who couldn't stand each other, Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. A 5'9" coach, Jeff Van Gundy, tried to get in the middle of it, and he nearly got run over as he tried to hold on for dear life by grabbing Mourning's leg. Johnson and Mourning got suspended for the deciding game of the series, but this time it was the Knicks who advanced. However, in the second round, the Knicks lost to Larry Bird and his Pacers, who made the conference finals against the Bulls. Chicago was on its last legs. Pippen was hurt, and all the other players were tired on the back end of a third consecutive year with over 100 games played. On the other hand, Reggie Miller was playing the best ball of his career, which he proved in Game 4, hitting a game-winning three-pointer after an uncalled offensive foul on Jordan. The Pacers pushed the Bulls to the brink of elimination as they held a double-digit lead multiple times in Game 7, but the Bulls defeated them on experience, proving once again to never doubt the heart of a champion. In the West, it was much less dramatic, as the Jazz lost just 3 games on their way to the NBA Finals, defeating the Rockets and the Spurs and sweeping the Lakers. Now, the finals were another super close series, with each game decided in the final minute, except for the inexplicable blowout in Game 3. The Bulls defeated the Jazz 96-54.
Beaten by 42 and held to the lowest scoring output in the history of the NBA.
In Game 6, the Bulls were trailing by 1 point. MJ stole the ball from Malone. What happened next was one of the most famous sequences in NBA history. And when Utah failed to score, the Bulls completed their second three-peat. And Jordan left the game with 6 titles and 6 finals MVPs. And after the season, Phil Jackson stepped down.
Phil Jackson cleaned out his office at the Chicago Bulls practice facility and made it a Pittsburgh. After 9 years and 6 NBA titles, he is done as the Bulls coach.
And Jordan stayed true to his word that he wouldn't resign if Phil was gone.
Michael Jordan said if Phil wasn't back, then he wasn't back.
But the NBA had even bigger problems than the retirement of their best player. Because for the third time in 4 years, there was a lockout. This was major.
Oh, bro, just
The NBA owners wanted a limitation on player salary, not wanting to be pushed around by the players who started demanding more and more money. On the other hand, the Players Association opposed their ideas and wanted bigger minimums. After the two sides failed to reach an agreement, the owners began the lockout. By October, it became the first time in NBA history that games were canceled due to a labor dispute. Further games were canceled by November and December, including the league's Christmas games, which have been played on an annual basis since 1947, and the All-Star Game, which was not played for the first time since 1951. The lockout continued into January of 1999, threatening the cancellation.
You have to eat all that sugar, man. You're going to give yourself a headache or you're going to hurt your stomach. Really shouldn't be eating.
And despite a division within the players' union, on January 6th, the union, the owners, and the NBA commissioner finally came to an agreement. So,
You wouldn't have got that shit on selfish purposes. Don't come over here and try to eat it.
First-year players.
I didn't want it then. That's what I'm saying. You would have got that shit on your own.
January 13th, 1999.
I'll go play back with
Lockout
you.
was still ongoing. Michael Jordan
Yes, nigga, dog. I didn't want it right now. Bro, you are something else.
Stearns, the Reinsdorf, for presenting me with the opportunity to play the basketball.
When the players resumed, the regular season was shortened to 50 games per team, as opposed to the normal 82. And to preserve games between teams in the same conference and shorten flight time, some teams didn't meet each other at all during the course of the shortened season. Dirk Nowitzki, Paul Pierce, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, Jason Williams, Mike Bibby, and Rashard Lewis got drafted. Scottie Pippen joined Hakeem and Barkley in Houston, while the Bulls missed the playoffs completely for the first time in 14 years. They would also become the second defending champion in NBA history that failed to make the playoffs, joining the 69-70 Boston Celtics, who missed the playoffs after Bill Russell's retirement. Karl Malone became the oldest player ever to win the NBA MVP. Vince Carter won the Rookie of the Year, and Allen Iverson won his first scoring title. In the playoffs, the Spurs lost just one game on their way to the NBA Finals, sweeping the Lakers in the second round, and then the Blazers in the conference finals. In the East, the Knicks had another nail-biter against the Heat, winning the series with Allen Houston's buzzer beater in the deciding Game 5. The Knicks became only the second number 8 seed to advance in the playoffs by defeating a number 1 seed. The Knicks' Cinderella story continued, as they swept the Hawks in the second round and then defeated the Pacers in 6 games to reach the NBA Finals, thus becoming the first 8 seed to reach the Finals, something that would later be repeated by the 2023 Heat team. However, in the series against Indiana, the Knicks lost Patrick Ewing to injury, which proved to be an insurmountable loss against the Spurs and their Twin Towers. And even though they had 2 great scorers in Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell, Tim Duncan destroyed the Knicks in the post, leading the Spurs to a 4-1 victory and their first NBA championship. Thus, the 90s concluded as arguably the most legendary era of NBA basketball. Thank you for watching. And if you like this one, subscribe and watch some more nonstop.
Please.
You gotta take airborne daily. Unlike some others, it has 7 nutrients to help fill those holes your immune system may have.
What else? Take Airborne. Unlike others, Airborne delivers 7 key immune-supporting nutrients, including vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. It helps fill the holes your immune system may have, giving you our most complete support yet. After The Last Dance and Michael Jordan's retirement, the NBA started losing money. But new heroes quickly emerged, and the league became more popular than ever. with some of the most
No.
legendary moments ever, like the greatest dunk contest performance of all time, or the biggest heat check of all time, the biggest fight in NBA history, and the greatest press conference of all time. We also saw the greatest televised scoring game ever. The assembly of the first modern super team and a high degree of tactical versatility from the ultra-defensive 50 to the high-octane offense of the 7 seconds or less. The most dominant big man, the greatest power forward, the best small forward, and some of the best shooting guards of all time played in the 2000s. Together with some of the most iconic jerseys, the rise of basketball TV shows, and the birth of social media, the 2000s were an amazing decade where that old school fighter mentality from the 90s had PlayStations, iPhones, and some of the baggiest clothing in human history. This is the full recap of the 2000s, from the 99-2000 NBA season to 2009. After the San Antonio Spurs won the 1999 title, the NBA had a wild offseason. However, the biggest news wasn't a player, but a coach who already had 6 championships. Phil Jackson decided to swap fishing in Montana for the most stressful job on the planet. Coaching the Los Angeles Lakers, where he had to deal with the hot shit, the legendary shot man, and in his place came coach Don Rivers. Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks for $280 million.
Mark Cuban.
To the Staples Center. Moved their legendary
Oh.
Part of way left the Magic after 6 years and joined the Suns. Renee O'Neal signed the Pacers. Scottie Pippen joined the Portland Trail. Elton Brandon was the first overall pick in the draft, followed by 2 point guards, Pete Francis and Garrett Davis. Lamar Odom, Richard Hamilton, Andre Miller, Sean Mary, Jason Terry, were also selected in the first round. But in such a deep draft class, 9 players got all-stars. The best player selected was the 57th. Nobody knew who.
The San Antonio Spurs selected Manuel Ginobili from Argentina.
However, before the season started, the NBA family suffered a tremendous loss after Wilt Chamberlain died of heart attack. Chamberlain's death wouldn't be the only tragedy. On January 12th, Bobby Phills of the Charlotte Hornets was killed as a result of reckless driving while racing against teammate David Weston, after which the Hornets retired Phil's number. On May 20th, another car accident shook the NBA world. Malik Sealy lost his life after a drunk driver hit his car, and Sealy was returning home from Kevin Garnett's birthday party.
NBA veteran Malik Sealy died as a result of a head-on car collision in suburban Minneapolis.
However, when the season finally started, Phil Jackson, Tex Winter, and their triangle offense did wonders for the Lakers. At one point, the 19-game win streak, the 4th-longest win streak ever at the time. The Lakers finished their first season in the Staples Center with 67 wins, the 8th best result ever at the time, with Shaquille O'Neal being 1 vote shy of becoming the first unanimous MVP in NBA history.
Actually, there's just some idiot. You know what? I wish I could have done call for you to the face. You messed up picture. I would have been the first ever best decision. This idiot. You understand? Yeah, Fred Hickman, idiot.
Elton Brand and Steve Francis shared the Rookie of the Year award, which was the 3rd and the last time that the NBA had co-rookies of the year. Tim Duncan and Shaq became the 3rd co-winners of the All-Star Game MVP. However, the biggest story of the All-Star weekend was the dunk contest. After a 2-year absence, the dunk contest returned to the bench when Vince Carter destroyed the rim with some of the most memorable dunks of all time. Lonzo Mourning won his 2nd consecutive Defensive Player of the Year award after 6.7 blocks a game. James Rose was the most improved player, while Doc Rivers won the Coach of the Year award, thus becoming the first and only head coach to win the award while not making the playoffs. And after 16 years in the NBA, Charles Barkley retired, missing the majority of the season before qualifying and only returning for the last game of the season. Dennis Rodman also retired after playing 12 games for the Mavericks. So did Kevin Johnson, Jeff Hornacek, and Smith. When the playoffs started, the Lakers justified the role of title favorites in the first 2 rounds. But in the conference finals, the Blazers proved to be their toughest opponent. Despite leading the series 3-1, Portland bounced back in 14-7, where they jumped on the Lakers' throat, leading by 15 with 10 left. Then the Lakers rallied and completed one of the biggest comebacks ever, securing the win with arguably the most famous alley-oop. strength season in an extremely competitive series. For all games were decided by 8 points or less. The Knicks ultimately prevailed, winning the last 2 games by a combined 3 points, beating Miami in 7 games. However, in the conference finals, Reggie Miller once again proved why they call him a big killer, beating Indiana against New York in 6 games. In the finals, the Lakers won the first 2 games at home, but when the series moved to Indiana, it looked like the Pacers would tie the finals after Shaq fouled out late in Game 4. Then Kobe took over, hitting 4 or 5 shots in overtime, including a game-winning late. And even though Indiana won Game 5 at the blowout, they couldn't stop the Jackets. The lead led the Lakers to another championship in 6 games, averaging 38 points and 16.7 rebounds per game. Shaq found one of the most dominant seasons ever with the Finals MVP. Following that Finals, Larry Bird retired from coaching, and Isaiah Thomas succeeded him on the Pacers bench for the 2001 season. Rick Pitino resigned as coach and team president of the Celtics. But the biggest change wasn't really that late. 5 famously taught shorts in the early 80s, the NBA finally allowed players to wear shorts below the knee. Some players, John Stockton, stuck with shorter. And nobody knew it at the time, but the 2000 NBA draft proved to be by far the weakest draft class in NBA history, with only 3 players making the All-Star team, and each accomplishing it once. In such a weak class, Mike Miller won the Rookie of the Year after averaging 11.9 points per game, which was the 3rd lowest scoring average ever for a Rookie of the Year. Dikembe Mutombo won his 4th and final Defensive Player of the Year award. Tracy McGrady was named the Most Improved Player, while Allen Iverson won the MVP after averaging a league-leading 31 points per game. Iverson also won the MVP of the All-Star game after leading the team to a 21-point comeback in the 4th quarter. The best season of his career, AI also led the NBA in steals. Jason Kidd was the assist leader for the 3rd straight year, while Antoine Walker made the most free throws, 221 makes for him. If you think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander attempts a lot of free throws, Shaq attempted 13.1 free throws per game, even though he probably could have when considering how many fouls on him didn't call. Shaq's 972 attempts from the charity stripe was the 8th highest mark in NBA history, and the most since Jordan attempted exactly the same number of free throws in the 1987 season. The Sixers and the Spurs won their respective conferences. It was the last time a team with a regular season did not win 6 fewer games in a full 18-game season in 2023. In the playoffs, the Lakers were unstoppable, not losing a single game on their way to the NBA Finals. But the East was much more competitive. The Raptors won their 1st playoff series in franchise history, and their 2nd-round match against the Sixers provided one of the most fun scoring tools of the century. Iverson dropped 54 points in Game 2, to which Vince Carter responded with a 50 in Game 3. In Game 5, AI was again, scoring 52 points to give the Sixers a 3-2 series lead. However, following game, Vince Carter finished with 9 to force 7. Then he made one of the most controversial decisions of his career.
It's already been papers on Vince Carter. Vince arrived in Chapel Hill at about 9 a.m. to attend the college graduation ceremony.
On the day of the deciding game, Carter attended a graduation ceremony in North Carolina. He took 2 flights that day. He came to Game 7 exhausted, shooting just 6 for 18 from the field, including a long jumper at the buzzer, which missed the target. Sixers won 88-87 and advanced to the conference finals against the Mighty Bucks team with Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, and Dog Roberts. Battling multiple injuries, Iverson missed Game 3, averaging just 31% from the field and 26% for 3 across the first 6 games of the series. Then, in Game 7, AI went berserk, taking 17 for 3 free shots, leading the Sixers to victory.
All right, so leave me alone. If you took it personal like that, then leave me alone. All right, cool.
The Lakers, nobody gave them much of a chance.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yet, if there was one person with ultimate belief in himself and a game to match it, it was Allen Iverson. League MVP played one of the best games in NBA Finals history, finishing with 48 points, including the most legendary step over time. It was the 6th best scoring performance in the finals ever. But unfortunately for Iverson, it was a monster. Even though they had an defensive player of the year in Mutombo, nobody in the world could guard Indeed, who averaged 33 points, 16 rebounds, 5 3.4 blocks per game in the series, shooting 57% from the field. Kobe added 24 points per game. The Lakers won the series in deservedly the finals MVP. The Lakers 15-1 record in the finals, the best record ever in the history of the NBA playoffs. And before the 2001-2002 season started, the biggest superstar in NBA history announced another return to the NBA. Rumors confirmed the greatest player of all time is back. Michael Jordan was back, this time with the Wizards, a team where he was also a part owner. Michael's most famous decision as an executive took place on June 27, 2001, when he selected Kwame Brown with the first pick. Brown became the first high school player to get drafted overall. Future Hall of Famers Al Gasol and Tony Parker were also taken in 2001, along with Gilbert Arenas, Joe Johnson, Ike Chandler, Zach Randolph, Richard Jefferson, Gerald Wall, and last but not least, Derek White.
Tune in, man. Like, subscribe, whatever the fuck this is.
The Grizzlies relocated from